about soccer!
Good evening, everybody. Thank you and welcome for joining us for at least a short while on this Sunday evening. Most teams have packed up and gone home. Andy Woodman is tucking into his 8th slice of cake just to try and continue to fill that void after losing the 97-98 playoff final. He may well have been able to vanquish some demons today, but he'll never be able to break the failure of stopping Kevin Donovan rounding him. Just be glad he didn't have to do it this year because it had taken him a half a year to do so. We are joined by a festivity of anxiety. Mike is down in the south. How are you, Mike? How's everything with you?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Bruce is there. His house is becoming more and more like a hoarder's. I'm expecting Dom Littlewood to appear any day now to try and shift everything. But I can't see a picture of Muhammad Ali. Has it gone?
No.
Okay,
no,
right.
It's still here. I've given up. I don't want to talk about that. I've had enough.
Anybody would like. He doesn't even want to sell it anymore. If anybody wants a picture of Muhammad Ali, go to Bruce's. Colin, thank you, welcome. Would you like a picture of Muhammad Ali?
Always. I mean, I'll be honest, this is much more of a set. I've had to negotiate with the missus to get this sorted, so I'm not quite sure where Muhammad Ali will go.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's a crack.
We got a sale. Right, Bruce, wrap it up, take it down. As long as Nottinghamshire Police don't take it off you, you'll be absolutely fine. Just handing it out. That's the sign of peace we want in these banter-filled week. Don't we want to be seeing someone lovingly handing over a Muhammad Ali picture rather than, thumping someone over the head with it because I don't know. I can't name a Notts County player, but that's why Colin's here. Colin, how are you feeling? We're about 24 hours away from knowing who is going to beat Wrexham, who are now emotionally exhausted.
Nerves are jangling. But then I've been here before, and I mean, like I say, Notts and pessimism go hand in hand. I think we're one of the few clubs, in the Football League and National League to have a song about things going from bad to worse, really, in terms of the wheelbarrow song. So listen out for that. But yeah, like I say, I think it's going to be an interesting one in terms of just being able to get the occasion. It's going to be a big occasion. It's going to be a good occasion. And that's what you want. That's what you want. You want it to be an occasion and to live for these things. It's just one of us got to go out at that stage. And like I say, then you've got Wrexham to contend with.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Bruce? I know we have mentioned it and we've talked about it, but this new playoff, we would say we're old hands at this playoffs, and we've known our fair share of defeats and stuff. But this way of doing it is a bit weird. Granted, we wouldn't have been in it if it wasn't for this, but it's all a bit weird, isn't it?
Yesterday felt like the season was already over. We've had no team news hardly. There's only been Matt Dean hasn't done a 35-minute Friday interview with Hursty. Yesterday was really weird with no football and 9 days since the last game or whatever it'll be by the time we play. It's just like, yeah, I'm just ready for the game now. I'm fed up of the build up, and you can't really talk anymore about it, can you? It's just like, I mean,
this is not the stuff you need to be talking about on the podcast in the preview to the build-up of the game.
I think it's probably, I've said before, home advantage, give Notts a slight advantage, but the two games between, we were brilliant at their place in the league game. It was a late winner, but a thoroughly deserved winner. The game at our place was very tight and was settled by a piece of, I can't remember exactly, but a piece of good finishing, I think, that was opportunist. So there wasn't much to separate the teams in the league. There wasn't much to separate the teams in the two games that they've played. Notts have probably got a slight advantage with home. We've been at home, but we've been there and won this season. It's almost a toss of a coin for me.
And Colin, how is it seen in Notts? So, I mean, everything's done with narrative for us. Our final time in the playoffs here, it felt like it was destined for us to go up with the fans coming up. You new playoff defeat last year, and what is the general consensus around the fans now? You've been here for what, 3 seasons now? Is it been?
Yes, Yeah, this is third time of trying to go up via the playoffs. And I think there is some of that fatigue in the fan base, I'll be honest with you, in terms of, we've been here before. We seem to have lost that kind of momentum a little bit in terms of getting excited for it. Having been a side who more often than not have enjoyed playoff success under Warnock, for example, we've had those kind of really good experiences. I think the one thing that's helped us is the last few games we've gained a little bit of momentum. We've kept clean sheets in 3 games. We've won them. We've kept in control of them. We've had players coming back. So don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of growing confidence, but we're not going to be making the mistake that we did under Alan Hardy a few seasons ago when we had the T-shirts printed already on the semi-final and to be dumped out by Coventry in the League Two playoffs. That was so. Yeah, we've learned our lessons there. We're not going to be celebrating prematurely. Let's put it that way.
Let's face it, it's not the worst thing that Alan Hardy has ever done.
That's true.
At least he didn't put that picture on the front. I was nastily downvoted to call this the Capicania hoedown, as the two tales of two fraudsters go up against each other, hoping to see which one. I wonder if he'll be in attendance. Mike, are you expecting Alex May / Capicania to make an appearance to see his two beloved black and white teams go face to face?
Now, there's a good question. I never thought about Alex May for about a year, mate. No, I'm not.
Do you think he's too busy investing in certain retail estates?
Well, he's too busy doing alleged things to alleged people, allegedly.
Those alleged people.
That cover it with the allegedlys.
Yeah, that's enough allegedlys, I think, the fucking fraudster. But I mean, what are you hoping, Mike, in terms of the team? I mean, we don't want to run through it, but is it set in your head what you expect? Would there be like Cropper and a Fete? Are we expecting changes there? Are we expecting McAtee to be there? Or are we going to be having a World Cup 90, a sort of 2006 sort of preying on a metatarsal to see if he's all right?
I think if he's not playing something seriously gone wrong, I think he's an absolute shoo-in to be starting the game. In terms of Fete or Cropper, I think he'll probably go for Cropper. Just away from home, giving you something extra to get out of your final third into the middle of the park if you're needing to get out of it. It's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if it's because the route to final is 2 away games and 2 quite tough away games, but this has sort of just crept up on me. I'm a bit ambivalent to it. I don't know if the nerves will kick in tomorrow, but I'm not really expecting us to win. I'm hopeful we will, but yeah, sort of.
Yeah, I get what you mean, Bruce. I'm feeling like it's a bit of a free hit, if anything, that these lads, we've come a long way in a year. We're no longer the banter club. Thank you, Scunthorpe United, for helping out in that cause. We're on our road to redemption, but this isn't. We understand. We've done our hard time in here. We know that there's no fairy tales, and we're not just going to sort of, win 3-0 here, win 3-0 at Wrexham, and then we got little old plucky Solly Hull Moors to beat in front of 12 fans, and then go do a Bristol Rovers. See you later.
That's what we're going to do, isn't it?
Somewhere.
That is what we're going to do, isn't it?
Well, we just need some fortuitous refereeing decisions, don't we? Somebody doesn't spoil the game.
Yeah.
What's Ross Joyce doing on Monday?
I'm just reading that message now. Yeah, right.
He was. Thank you, Ollie. I'd forgotten that Fete had a moon boot on. So yeah, he probably won't play. Thank you.
Yeah, but Lenny was injured yesterday, wasn't he? He played. He was injured. True. He was out. It might have been a make believe, a cardboard moon boot. Do
you think that's what it is trying to outsense County?
It is a free hit, but we've played 44 league games to get to this point, and now we've got to this point. You've given yourselves a chance of getting promoted. So yes, it's a free hit. No, I won't be absolutely devastated if we don't get promoted this season. I think we'll be, a bit like Notts County. We'll be, if you get rid of Wrexham and Stockport, then we'd be in the top 2 or 3 favourites to go up next season, with the teams that are coming down and the teams that are coming up. But we're here now, and I don't want us to go down with a whimper and a 1-0 defeat. If we need to go for it now. We're here and try and take that opportunity. It's not. I'm not comfortable with the fact that we're here and I don't care what happens, because that's not true.
Do you think we should go full Paul Pesci-Salido if we're 3-0 down with 75 minutes to go? Like your mate on FIFA, just, pressing L1 and hacking down every Notts County, just out of revenge of some sort of anger that we won't make it? Or are you happy for us to, just try? I don't even know where I was going with that. It was just a funny quip. Colin, what are the sort of, who are the men to watch? Who are the people we should be aware of? Who are your weak links? And are there any sort of, are you certain on what the 11 will be for tomorrow?
I'm probably taking your last question first. I'm probably not that certain, simply because we've had players like Kyle Cameron, who's the captain, coming back and gathering fitness, which has been a relief to most Notts fans, because we've looked probably our most shaky, playing 4 at the back rather than our usual kind of 3 centre halves, and we have wing backs sort of going forward and bombing on. I think Ian Birchnell has struggled with the lack of flexibility of being able to kind of change shape, because teams kind of sussed us out a little bit and knew how to get at this, really. So being able to kind of change from that kind of 3 centre halves to the flat 4 gives us a few options, really. I think we'll probably start that way. I think he's probably had enough in his tank now to Kyle Cameron to be starting, and Richard Brindley as well on the other side of the 3. In terms of standout players, I mean, they're fairly obvious in terms of, you look at the goal scoring charts or whatever. I mean, Cal Roberts, I think, has got sort of 1 in 2 now, more or less. You've got Kyle Wootton, who will be a big miss for us. He's out of contract to the end of the season, and I think if we don't go up, or even if we do, I think he's gone, unfortunately. And then you've got Ruben Rodriguez, who I think scored the late goal against you guys at your place, who's been in electric form, to be honest. And I think, probably adding to the slight sense of pessimism, we're likely to be seeing the end of Ruben Rodriguez, whether he takes us all the way through to the final, or whether tomorrow's his final game. So they're the standout players. They're the players that, I think can really turn a game. If I'm honest, I've started, so part of my role with the analyst bar, other than being almost a slightly rude word, really, that makes a few people giggle. But one of the things that we do is we sort of look at stats. Myself and Richard Gando, who's put a fantastic preview together about the Grimsby game, and I was going to pitch a few of his observations to you, with you guys being there and seeing it with your own eyes. But one of the things that I think really is the game for Notts is going to be won out wide. So I think sort of Cal Roberts particularly. In fact, there's a good matchup between, is it Amos, your left back?
Yeah, he's quality.
Yeah, and I generally think that's going to be a key battle. I generally think that's where, because obviously, like I say, Cal Roberts is out wide, cuts inside. Like I say, he scored a goal in every 2 games, more or less, and he's really coming in bang on form. Amos looks like a really interesting player, really sort of like getting forward, but purely on a stats basis. And like I say, I'm very aware that you need to be able to contextualize this as well. I think from the data I've looked at, he looks like he's got a bit of an error in him. Is that a fair assessment?
Bruce, I'll hand that over to you, because you've probably seen more of him than I have. None of the goals I've seen, he's
I don't know. Yeah, particularly, but most players are at this level for a reason, aren't they? And as a defender, that's probably because you have got an error in you, or you're not quite at the right level. So yeah, we've made mistakes at the back, that's for sure, definitely.
It's no 2 minutes of waterfall Nadir. So I would say Afete would be probably more the error prone out of the ones, because I'm in my head, I'm thinking of the error that conceded the penalty against Southend, where his wayward pass meant that they conceded possession. He tried to redeem himself by getting him down as quickly as possible. But
have you tried kicking a ball in moon boots?
Yeah, well, that's true. Maybe that's what it was. The Hodsons are getting involved today. They said maybe we just need to keep Waterfall away from goal. And Amos is a 7 out of 10 every game. Are there any sort of, if you were going up against Notts tomorrow, what would be your game plan? What would you be looking at doing?
We struggle being pressed. So we're really good on the ball. We're good to have the ball. We really like it when teams give us the ball and let us have it, and we're quite dangerous with it. I think one of the criticisms that Notts get as an atmosphere, and I'm sure you guys who are going down will pick up on this, is that the atmosphere can be quite flat. And I think it's because we have a lot of possession and we want the possession. It's really hard sometimes to get that kind of energy in the crowd going. But we struggle to be pressed. And I think that's going to be something that, again, looking at the stats and looking at the data that I've looked at, Grimsby do very well, particularly when you sort of switch 4-4-2. So you tend to start with one up front, I think, and then you tend to switch sort of 4-4-2 later on, and you're really aggressive in that press. And I think that's where our danger is going to be. We're going to need to be really resolute when you guys do that to us. And it's going to be very interesting to see how well we cope with that. We've got some fantastic players within our side, individually, but again, as a team, that's the sort of thing that we really sort of struggle. Also, kind of low crosses in the box as well. I think a lot of goals that we've conceded have been this kind of, someone going down the side, cutting it across, us not clearing our lines. And it's been interesting that for the last 3 games, I think I'm right in saying, we've put Sam Slocum back in goal, who's been there before. He's won playoffs before. He's got promotion before, experienced keeper. Whereas we've had a lad on loan from Liverpool, who, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's going to have a fantastic career, but it's been a little bit jittery, I think. So it'd be interesting if obviously Sam Slocum starts in goal to try and settle that aspect down. But they're definitely the things that I'll be looking for Notts to try and resolve tomorrow.
Does the squad feel complete in your eyes? So we probably look back at it at hindsight now, Bruce and Mike. I don't know what you think, but that 2015, 2016 team seemed relatively complete, especially as a starting 11. I couldn't think of anyone that there wasn't many sort of and ahs in terms of that spot was just not right yet. They hadn't worked it out. Would you say that's the same with Notts, or do you think there are areas in which you're definitely looking at? For example, for us, we need another goal scorer. Just looking at your stats, you've got 3 players who have scored more than any of our players in terms of even John McAtee and stuff. She's on 14 for the season. Would that be a fair assessment, or are there places where you're looking at improving?
I think that's a fair assessment in terms of attack. This is probably the strongest we're going to be, because I'd imagine if we're not successful at getting this over the line, we're going to lose some of those players that you've just mentioned in terms of the goal scorers, in terms of, Roberts, Wootton, Rodriguez, because let's face it, people want goal scorers and need them, and we've got 3 of them doing really well. So I think that's probably a slight concern that if we don't make it, we've probably seen the back of at least 2 of those 3. Where I think we might struggle, I would love it if we had another centre-half who was probably a little bit more resolute. The style of play that we need, and going back to one of the comments I've just done, we're absolutely right about the level that we're at. You're going to have players with errors in them in their skill set, so, we all want a centre-half that we can rely on, who's going to edit and kick it, but also the style of play we want, they need to be able to pass it and play it. And sometimes you get a kind of mishmash of those skills. And so we really need to try and find somebody who can do all of that, because, we've got players like Conor Rawlinson, who's a really solid unit at the back. Fans love him in terms of he'll put his face where other people won't even put their feet. But at the same time, ball at his feet, he's got an error in them. And if he's being expected to play it out, again, that's an area of weakness for us. So, yeah, I'd love us to be able to recruit another centre-half, perhaps. We've had Harry Arter actually on loan from our neighbours recently, and he's gone back. That was just simply to get him fit, because he's been out of Forest reckoning for a long time. But he's gone back, so maybe there's a space in midfield that at the moment Jim O'Brien's come back into fitness and come back into fill. But thinking about next season going forward, we're probably going to need someone who's going to be able to orchestrate things with Matty Palmer, who I have to say is my favourite player of the season, despite the great names that I've just mentioned. Matty Palmer, I think he's played every minute in terms of the league, a fantastic engine, and probably playing a couple of levels below himself.
Where have you fallen short, Colin? Why? If we look at Stockport and Wrexham, ran it really close for the title. I'm not sure without looking how far. You're only a point or 2 ahead of us. So we were what were we? I don't know, 10, 15 points behind them. Where's your shortcomings been this season that have stopped preventing you from being right up at the top?
Away form for me. Away form's been really poor. At home, we've recently broken the record. We've scored in every single game that we've played at home, which wasn't the case under previous managers. Neil Ardley, that was a big criticism under his stewardship, that we weren't always aggressive, at home. But away, we've struggled. We've tried to do the same things. I think, fans are particularly sort of, critical of the fact that we didn't really have a plan B. I think some of that has been down to injuries and squad depth. But yeah, we needed another strategy to be able to resist pressure when we're playing away from home, because we tend to let the opposition have an awful lot of the ball, probably too much for my heart, to be honest with you. And hopefully that isn't going to be the case tomorrow, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that it will be, and we get punished when we're away from home when we do that.
It's quite ironic that that you've got a really good home record, and I think you've only lost twice, and we were one of the teams that's beaten you at home, and we've only lost a couple of games, 2 or 3 games at home, and you beat us at home.
We've lost 5.
Have we? All right. Well, we've not. All right. We've had a fairly.
Sorry,
we
man.
picked up. We picked up quite a lot of home points this season.
We just haven't drawn much, have we?
No. And like you say, you've got a really good. Does it make as a fan to you? Does it make any difference that Grimsby are one of the teams that have beaten you, or at home, or if we'd have been a team that you'd had a reasonable result against at home, would that make any difference in how you were feeling tomorrow, or would you think it's another day, it's another game? Just bring it on.
I think it's another day and another game. I think because we've played at this level for a few years now, I think if it had been in our first year and you do have that, or sometimes you do have that kind of confidence and swagger. I know that we felt that as a club in our first year in the National League, that we're a big side and we shouldn't be down here, etc. And so therefore that might have dented our confidence. But we've been turned over before over the last sort of few seasons, and our flaws have been exposed. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be a really close game. So it's going to be a great atmosphere regardless. I think there's a lot of commonalities between the two sides in terms of, the way they play, the way the managers want to set up the sides, in terms of competency on the ball and those sort of things. So it's going to be a great occasion, certainly. And so, I'm looking forward to it from that point of view. Obviously, just hope that not squeak it, to be honest. And I think it will be kind of like we saw in both games. It's going to be a moment of kind of late individual brilliance that's probably going to solve it one way or the other.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, just listening to you earlier, Colin, you were saying, Roberts and Rodriguez, maybe 1 or 2 other players might be on their way out at the end of the season. I see there's a lot of talk about your managers. Well, I mean, do you guys at Notts, do you see this as maybe the last shot with this sort of group of players before maybe, with a few almost maybes last couple of seasons, maybe this year, if you don't do it, it might be a little bit of a rebuilding?
It's starting to feel that way, I'll be honest with you. I think we've attracted an awful lot of interest from the style of play that we're trying to play. It looks good. And I think, you can see that also with the types of loans we've been able to bring in. We've started to get lads coming in from, Premier League clubs or clubs with kind of, Category 1 academies and stuff wanting to come in and play because of the style of play that we're playing. So we're attracting an awful lot of interest. Coach's voice are always down there recording. So we're quite a glam club in that sense. But that inevitably attracts the sort of attention that you don't want. People come down, start looking at your players. The Cowleys have been very noisy about Kyle Wootton, for example, as a replacement striker for them for next season. So there is a sense actually that if we don't get it over the line, then there's going to be a big rebuild. I think this is where also that it's going to be a challenge to the Notts fans' sort of psychology a little bit, because our owners have come in from a data background. They look at data analysis and those sort of things. And one of the things that they want to do, I think, is recruit and find undiscovered gems, put them on these sort of platforms. And, if they don't get us up, then they're going to sell them. And this is going to be the big test, not only the player, but also, like you say, the manager as well. So Ian Birchnell, great manager who they brought in from Scandinavia, who's been able to really develop these players into kind of sellable assets, particularly Ruben Rodriguez, who is twice the player than he was under Neil Ardley, for example. He's coached him and developed him into a sellable asset. But again, that attracts attention. So I think he was at 1 to 3 for Forest Green Rovers.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big challenge. And I only hope that one of the things an article that I wrote, even when we appointed Ian Birchnell, is we made this switch from, a traditional manager in Neil Ardley who expected to bring his own players in, to then a head coach where we get the impression that there's a recruitment team around him that brings the players in, then he coaches and develops them. So I suppose the reassuring thing, if it goes, as difficultly as it might do, is that we're going to replace a head coach with another head coach, and the same standard of players are hopefully going to come in. But you're right, this does feel like a tipping point moment, definitely.
Do you think there is much in that story about your manager? And I've totally lost my train of thought.
What's happening with Ian Birchnell? What's going
on?
on?
Yeah, I was going to say,
because be honest, we've been in that situation. Russell Slade left us for Yeovil Town, much to I imagine to County's delight after they knocked Forest out of the playoffs. But he was ready to go at the playoff final in 2005, and we were a team that had lost out on automatic promotion in the very last minutes of the season, and we just didn't turn up. Is that what's currently happening? So for those of you who don't know, Ian Birchnell, there's a lot of rumours going around that he might go to Forest Green as their manager and such. Is in terms of your background, is that affecting the fan base at the moment? What's happening really?
I'll be honest. He's not enamoured himself to every element of the fan base, although let's face it, I think that's every club, isn't it? You're always going to find someone who's a detractor. But
never here, it's all fine.
I'll remind you of that in a few weeks' time or a few months.
Someone's getting the mattress sheet out as we speak.
But yeah, you know, don't get me wrong. I think he's done a fabulous job. You know, he's a fabulous coach, and he's taken. Not only has he taken the players that he's been given, or you know, that he's played a part in selecting, he's developed them. You know, the age of the squad has gone down. You know, in terms of the size of the squad has reduced as well. So he's done some fantastic work there. I think there are some Nats fans who are frustrated by the style of play that he wants. There is a sense that we overplay, or certainly that's the criticism that they level at him. And when you think of the diet that we've had previously at Meadow Lane that's worked successfully, we've had Cottrell. You know, we've had Allardyce, we've had Warnock. You know, they're not exactly the most purists in terms of football style. So there's been some frustration, and it's not helped with Neil Ardley doing so well at Solihull, because he was liked. You know, even though from my point of view, Neil Ardley was the man who had the opportunity to turn us around in January, back in the time when we got relegated, and did an awful lot of business in the transfer market, and still didn't manage it when Macclesfield managed to keep themselves up and they weren't even being paid for 6 months. So he wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't quite as enamoured with Neil Ardley as other members of the fan base. But they're seeing Solihull's progress and rise as another reason to, you know, another stick to beat Ian Birchnell with, really. But if he goes, you know, he's going to be a typical kind. He's going to go on and do good things. I think we've just got to hope that the owners who identified Ian Birchnell and brought him in are going to bring in someone similar who can do similar things. But it definitely feels like a bit of a time of change if we're not able to get it over the line.
I get my next serious question is: do you think both clubs should at some point get together and decide a trophy in which we both hand over, depending on who is currently leading, most promoted, most relegated?
I think so. Yeah, I think.
And if so, yeah, what do we need to get it sponsored by? I don't know. There's got to be there's got to be a well-known ladder company out there, or at least Snakes and Ladders. Like
or some
MD.
form of, you know, if there's a common form of antidepressant or something, do you know what I mean? Because this isn't great for your nerves, is it? Going up and down, you know, these kind of mood uppers and downers is constant, isn't it, with the two clubs? Yeah. Yeah.
Behave, Simon. Nobody deserves that. Bromley don't even deserve that. Scunny might. In terms of what brought you down here, I feel very Dale Ladson right now, going, what kind of non-league club are you, and how did the move come about? Why did you end up here? How bad was it? I mean, dick pics aside, what brought you to this point?
We had absolutely no plan for quite some time, and I think this is why, you know, I'm delighted with the type of owners that we've got. And you know, however people feel about data and analytics, you know, it's an approach. You know, it is a strategy and a philosophy. We've got actually something that we're clinging to and following through. Because I'll be honest with you, it's been scattergun, you know, before the owners took over. I mean, even I take you so far back as good old Sven and Munto Finance, and you know, the Promises of Millions and Sol Campbell.
I've still got a picture of Sven walking across Blundell Park from when we played you that year. That was that was fun. Not for you guys, I imagine, but still.
Well, I mean, it was a great season. I'll be honest with you. Do you know what I mean? You know, you never knew what was turning up next. I mean, there was obviously Sol. I mean, there was genuine rumours of Nedved, Roberto Carlos. I know Mancini, and I know this for a fact, that Mancini was very close to taking over before Sven realised that actually this money was just being printed on a Hewlett Packard in the back. You know, so that obviously destabilised the club for a long time. So obviously we managed to get up, you know, that season purely on fumes, and you know, but just had no plan. We've got no training ground, and we had no training ground. We had no real plan. We lurched from one philosophy to another. I think one of the most aggressive changes we had was Sean Derry, great guy, you know, and again former Notts man and stuff, and he was recruiting players in the last few years of their lives, really, and professionally. So you had Roy Cowell in goal, And we thought it was a really good idea to move from him to Ricardo Muniz and bring in a load of Dutch lads and, completely change the philosophy. I think at one point we had a squad of 42 players under Ricardo Muniz. So, I mean, that just shows you just how limited in terms of plan and outlook. We were going from direct to, you score 3, we score 5 sort of thing, switching back constantly. So again, going back to where we are now, at least, irrespective of what happens, we're a club with a plan and a philosophy and an approach. And should Ian Birchnell go, or should some of the players that we've talked about go, we know the types of players that we're going to recruit and put into those positions, which is at least reassuring, because from certainly the last probably 10 years of supporting Notts, you had no idea how we were going to go and which direction we were going to go in. And it was exciting in some moments and deeply troubling in others.
I guess, in terms of Mike Bruce, it might be worth thinking of some questions you might want to ask Colin before we sort of wrap it up. But while I do that, can I ask you both a question as well? Do you think this team that we're going to put out tomorrow is stronger than the one that defeated them at Meadow Lane? We didn't have Holohan. We didn't have Smith. Maguire-Drew wasn't involved. Do you think it's a stronger team than what we're going to put out tomorrow?
What was the team?
It was Crocombe, Afete, Pearson, and Waterfall. That's a quick back line. Amos, Coke, quick midfield. Clifton, Reiki, Souza, McAtee, and Taylor, with Smith, Fox, Wright, Burgess, and Abrahams on the bench.
It's not that dissimilar. And if I remember rightly, I think Giles Coke I could be miles wrong. I think Giles Coke got subbed at half time.
He did, yeah, 46 minute. But we didn't have Holohan. We didn't have Smith as that centre back. Maguire-Drew wasn't involved yet. I think he was still sort of getting up to fitness. Do you think we've got more? The bench certainly seems stronger.
Yeah, I don't think there's a massive deal of difference in the team, if I'm honest. Like you say,
Mike Bruce isn't agreeing with me. What do you think?
Oh, that's all right.
I think it's clearly demonstrable. It is not by a lot, but it is a better team.
I'm only joking, Bruce. What did you want to say?
No, I just don't think it's like you say, the pace of Smith, and he's been a really good signing. He makes a difference, and he does help the two centre halves because they weren't the fastest, and it gives us something different. He's good on the ball, doesn't miss a lot. Touch wood. But yeah, apart from that, the rest of the team is very, very much of a muchness, and like you say, you swap a midfielder for Coke, and it's the same team almost, isn't it? Because it could Sousa could get the nod tomorrow night on the right. I think him and Maguire-Drew is probably one of our only two selection dilemmas, really, where we're not sure.
I think the Smith in and Coke also not in. I think that's quite a big difference. I think with Holohan in the middle, it gives you a lot more than Coke, as well as a lot more pace and dynamism. And I think Smith's been an absolute revelation. So I think those two players just actually changed that side quite a bit for the better. I think one of the problems we might have tomorrow is that Manny's just scored a hat-trick. Does he keep Manny in the side, or does he put Taylor back in?
Well, here's the other question.
How do you drop a man with a hat-trick?
Do you bring Shop back? People are talking about Shop taking us back. He's already promoted York City this week. Is he going to do the same with us? Come back off the boat and
bring
take us up? Yeah. For my thing, I don't think we should put Lenny on the bench. It's nice that he's just got someone promoted, but there's a reason he got York City in the National League North promoted rather than being at Town in the National League. Yeah, it's interesting. Colin, in terms of experiences and stuff, someone's already asked where the best food near the ground is. Where's the best place to go drink? What would your recommendations be?
I mean, like I say, I wouldn't like to suggest that I've ever been there, but I've heard Hooters is quite good.
Celery is rocking.
One of the few remaining, I think, in the UK. If not only, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, I've never been there. And like I say, I think, I mean, even some of the stalls around the ground and stuff, you get some decent food around there as well. As you approach to to the ground. I think, like I say, I'd imagine after. Shall we say your rather unfortunate media coverage on the last time you were down there, I'd imagine that there'll be some very overzealous stewarding and security, I'd imagine. But how do you guys feel about that as well? I was going to say, how do you guys feel about that in terms of a representation of your club and stuff? How did you take that as a club?
I think that cocaine is a national problem. It's not a Grimsby problem, and it's not a football problem either. It's a society problem. I think from my experience living down in Surrey, I see a hell of a lot more men queuing for the toilets at Fulham, Brentford, and QPR, and at Spurs games when I've been to them than I ever see at Blundell Park, mostly because there aren't any toilet seats on the toilets. But I think that is a problem that is more prevalent down there. But I think it suited the agenda that Grimsby, with its title and its reputation, was put in it rather than Spurs or Fulham or anything like that. And I think it was a pretty poor piece of journalism, especially when you take into account, and I saw some Notts County fan retweeting it, talking about the town fans threatened to go onto the pitch by singing about we score when we go on the pitch. And I think, yeah, it's just embarrassing stuff. But
yeah, I mean, you've heard that in every ground, have you? You've heard that in every single ground. I mean,
you didn't hear it from us last year, though. I'll be honest.
Alex, we did score in the last minute, and it didn't happen. So,
well, it's because there's a load of fat bastards who couldn't get down to the bottom and couldn't get their leg over. That's why.
No, Lawton tried to say that 3 people running down a stairwell was a pitch invasion. He honestly tried to push that, but you know, it's a working class northern town. It's an easy target. It's no worse and no better than anywhere else up and down the football league in the National League. It's everywhere. It's a society problem, and we're no worse than anybody else.
And I think, especially when we talk about the fan stuff, our podcast, and especially me, I've been very open in saying, look, it's not illegal for a fan to go in the home end to sit. You see it at the Europa League final where Rangers taking up. You see it in the World Cup. You see it everywhere. Fans are human beings, and they can sit, and we can talk to Colin here, and I haven't called him a prick at once. We're all relatively decent people. And I think when fans become tribal and start having a go at one another, and people start regurgitating the bullshit that government and police do by calling us troglodytes or northern monkeys, whatever it may be, you're only helping divide us to make it easier for the police to control what we do. And that may not be necessarily an issue with Notts County fans, whoever may be listening from there, hello, at the moment, but it will be, because you get to a point where I'm going, yeah, why don't we, if we're both here next season, yeah, let's restrict them. Let's give them 800 tickets, because that's all we've got to do. But then also all we're doing is punishing fans. And I think the sensible thing would have been, for if you wanted to restrict the tickets because of safety, then it should have been, right, Grimsby Town, you can sell it to your season ticket holders. That's it. We've got 3,000 season ticket holders. If 3,000 go, that's fine. You're not missing out on people. People who've got season ticket holders are not going to kick off. And I understand tomorrow the spotlight will be on us because of incidents with your fellow neighbours across the water, with what we've seen happen today at Man City with an Aston Villa goalkeeper getting assaulted, and Port Vale. It seems to be everywhere at the moment. And I don't understand how football fans can keep turning on one another. It's not banter. It's not clever. Maybe I went about it in the wrong way, but my thought process was this. If we make as much noise as possible saying, look, this is going to happen. Away fans are going to be in the home end. It's just not worth the hassle. You've got a massive stand there. Stick them in there. Separate them out if you need to. I don't care. But it shouldn't be worth the hassle for you guys to be now. Some poor sod in the Notts County ticket office was currently going through every new account and asking him a question of going, oh, what did Sam Allardyce wear in his first debut match as manager in 1993 or whatever it may be? It's just not worth it. And that would have probably been the sensible approach to do it in. Grimsby fans are no worse than Notts County fans. Notts County fans are no worse than Grimsby fans. And at the same point, we're no more loyal than anywhere else, though we are stupid. And because there's nothing else going on in Grimsby, we all go on away days. Am I wrong there, gents? That felt like I talked a lot.
No, I think you're right. Look, I know what Notts County do with the ticket. I mean, but it just seems as a total avoidable problem. Like, to restrict the tickets makes a problem, and it's an obvious problem it's going to make. There's an obvious solution to it, which is give some more tickets, and you can deal with it a lot easier. So I hope everybody behaves themselves tomorrow, especially with what's been going on. I will say sometimes you hear an awful lot about travelling fans, and you heard a lot from the times when we went down there about the states of the train carriages and things. Well, let's just remember they put one train on from Grimsby to Nottingham, and piled everybody in there. So sometimes you have to treat football fans
with one working toilet as well. If I remember,
absolutely,
right.
you have to.
Bruce? You were on the train, weren't you?
Yeah, I was on the train, but there was no bins and stuff. But that's not important. I mean, I've been to Notts loads of times.
Yeah, I think
You're
I've sat
always-
in every stand apart from the main one.
You're
As
always-
Colin was saying, moving us around.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, we used to be behind the goal. But I've never seen a lot of bother. I think Notts, generally, from what I've seen in the past, a fairly sort of friendly fan base, and they're not that, I've not seen a lot of trouble. Somebody will chip in that this has happened or that's happened, but I've been there a lot of times. It must be, for a long time, Barnsley was my most visited ground, and I must have been to Notts 8 or 9 times now, so it must be up there. It's always, you go where you want in the city, you drink where you want. I mean, we kept a Reds down the other year. We always used to be able to go in the Trent Navigation, and then they changed that to a home pub. And we went in there the other year, just get your heads down, get your mouth shut, had a pint. We don't sound that vastly different from one another. It's not like, you get some cockneys up and they're loud mouthing or whatever.
Hockle bar, 3 hours is up here.
I don't see, I don't see a lot of trouble, and hopefully, we're not going to get on the pitch. There'll be a line of stewards in front of us. The only people that could possibly end up on the pitch following what's happened before, in my opinion, is the home fans, because they've got more access to the pitch. If they get the right result,
home game of the season.
If they get the right result, we always used to go on the pitch last home game. But what's changed is these brain dead morons who are going after players when they're supposed to be celebrating their own team. I don't get it. Are they trying to make some sad name for themselves? I just don't understand it. Your team's just, the case of Everton or Port Vale. If I run on the pitch in, absolute delirium, at the fact that my team have just got promoted or to a playoff final, I want to go and celebrate with other fans or my players. What makes these people, the first reaction they do is to go on the pitch and run up to or assault a player from another team? They're just absolute. They're just dickheads, and I just don't get it. They're not. It's not the natural reaction. You want to go and be with your own teammates. I just have no comprehension. Whether they're all off the tits on something, I don't know.
I think it's a bit of mob mentality, isn't it? People, when they get in crowds, they think, nobody can see what they're doing in a crowd. But I think sometimes.
But why would you do that though, Mike? Why would that be your first reaction? I don't care that they're in a crowd. I mean, I just don't. I don't understand it.
No, neither do I. But I mean, if you look at it, people do sometimes when they're in a crowd think they can get away with things because they're in a crowd. But I think it's always important to remember that not all football fans are like that. It's a very small minority. And sometimes we're all lumped in together, which is the point I was making about the train.
Yeah, no, I think you make some really fair points. I mean, some of the things that I'm aware of, or certainly have come aware of from the Notts angle is, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording, that the stadium that those fans were going to was sort of hastily built after the Taylor report. And I think it's, even though the capacity, I think on paper is something like 19,000, 20,000, I think in terms of safety that gets reduced. But I am aware that obviously we've probably had, just thinking off the top of my head, we've probably had more away fans than the ones that your allocation has been. And unfortunately, I think, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that some of it has been down to like I say, some of the coverage, but also depending on what Nottinghamshire police have said in terms of how many were allowed and how much staff they've got available for that. I'm sorry, and we should remember Nottinghamshire Police are not amazing. Look how they deal with us when we go to Mansfield, Bruce. I don't know if they're not incredible.
On the flip side of that, though, we've always had 3:00 kickoffs at Notts County.
Yeah, that's true.
They're used to dealing with Forest and big away followings and things like that.
Do we have a train back on Monday night?
No, there won't be a train back. No. You have to go through Lincoln at something that's like 7:00 or something, don't you, if you're going to get back. But that's one of the good things. So you say they're not very good, and you might be talking about the way that they handle fans, but from a policing point of view, when a kickoff times, Notts is always 3:00, and that's one of the joys that you can go and have a few beers, and you're not having to sit in some Mexican food outlet at 9:30 trying to get breakfast so you can have a pint with it. They are.
That is very specific.
It's always been. At Mansfield, we were sat in a retail park in, I don't know, whatever you call the place, having in some Mexican or Brazilian restaurant just so we could get a pint because the pubs weren't allowed to open. At 10:00. But Notts is always a 3:00 kickoff, so they're used to handling. Forest the 10,000 there tomorrow or whatever, 10 or 11,000. Forest get Colin, you'll tell me they get 28, 27, 28,000.
Yeah,
they can handle it. So
Panthers
it's
get
not down
7 when the Steelers are in town.
It's not down to the police, but I just think going right back to probably 5 minutes ago when you were making your point about you and Alex were making your point about the allocation, Mike. I just think that they've tried to make the most of home advantage, and I don't disagree with that. It might backfire in that we might end up with some away fans in the home end, but if they reckon the crowd's going to be 11 or 12 tomorrow, we could have sold 4,000 tickets. 4,000 away fans in one stand sat together would almost make it feel like a Grimsby home game. Because that's why they've done it. In my opinion,
I think what's happened is the safety advisor group has said you need this many, and Notts County, knowing the money's been split between 6 teams, and we don't want that many. Okay, fine. You don't put up a fight. You're just like, yeah, fine, whatever. There's usually a bit of negotiation from what I've been told in the past. Like, well, how about we do this? If we put in these contingencies, will you be happy if we include an extra 1,000, 2,000? I would imagine that's what's happened. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's fully an MK Dons split them and put them in the upper tier.
Yeah.
But I think there was more a case of, oh no, don't do that's terrible. Oh no, yeah. Oh. As they go, right, lads, they've only got 2,000.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think reputation's a really big thing as well, and you're absolutely right. I think it's important that people still see Notts as a good place to go and a good place to go away, and I hope that it hasn't been sort of deliberately manipulated in quite the same levels that I'm sure some people are suspicious of. I think from a Notts point of view, and probably from a parent's point of view, my only other concern is obviously the stand to your left, the one that there's been, shall we say, rumours of away fans buying tickets for, and I can completely understand the logic of it. I mean, just to give you some more context, we had that with Wrexham as well, because I don't know if you remember that Wales had a different lockdown or something, and so therefore there was limitations on how many tickets or how many, and then we ended up with Wrexham fans in the stand, but ordinarily it ends up in the family stand, and then that's obviously when things get a little bit more sort of like politically a bit difficult, with the kids and what they're sort of seeing and stuff. Generally, I think we're all in agreement. We just want it to be the occasion that it really should be. Do you know what I mean? It's been a long season. It's not exactly been, the National League seasons are never easy seasons, are they? And we just hope that it's going to be, we're going to be remembering it for the right reasons in terms of something really, really exciting on the pitch. And I do generally think it's going to be a late winner for one of us. And we're going to go in with a memorable game, hopefully.
It's going to be cracking, absolutely. Bruce, Mike, is there anything else you want to ask Colin before we wrap it up? I know Bruce is very aware. We've talked about this preview game, and he just wants to get on with it. Is there anything you want to ask Colin before we go? The only thing I will add is, Notts fans, if you start singing Grimsby's a shithole, I lived in Nottingham. I know what St Anne's Meadows and Stapleford looks like. So shut your mouths. We can't all live in Sandy Acre.
No, I've got nothing. I've got nothing more to add. Like you say, I'm just ready for the game, and I hope Colin enjoys shopping with the missus next Saturday.
Never going to enjoy that ever. But
it's fine. Just put on your black and white scarf, and you'll be able to join us at Wrexham, where we get put on a cute little TikTok video where Ryan Reynolds still doesn't understand the offside rule. Mike, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, nothing for Colin. I just say, I know I said at the start I was a little bit, it snuck up upon me, but I mean, talking about it now and it being tomorrow, I'm actually shitting a brick now.
Sorry, man. I mean, that's what we're here for with this. We want to make people actually feel nervous.
I was fine earlier.
Colin, what did you make, if for example, we do stay in the same league next year, what did you make of the teams that have come up? So we got York City, relatively local for you guys as well. Dorking have come in, relatively local for me at least. It's at least a lovely day out in the Surrey Hills. But have you got any thoughts on those guys coming up and those guys coming down?
I think it's just budgets. We mentioned it before. I just want the big budgets out of the way. So like I say, if it's not us, let's get Wrexham out of the division. Do you know what I mean? Let them go and spend their money elsewhere, and we can hopefully have a fairer fight of it this time around. Because I generally think we could end this season, or certainly start of next season, Notts will end up probably in, well, I won't say profit, because we're in I think every club is financially ruined down in the National League, but you know what I mean? We're going to end up probably selling Ruben. We might get a bit of a fee for Ian Birchnell should he go as well. So we're going to end up with a decent pot of cash, which, you know, putting our season into perspective, being fifth on the back of, you know, two teams that have spent millions, really, if it's Stockport and Wrexham going up, then fair enough, and we go again next season. And like I say, it feels like a fairer fight with, you know, with the likes of Scunthorpe, who aren't going to spend to those sort of levels, really.
Well, if you're that stupid, you know, you lay in your bed of shit and get on with it. Though you have to rent it because you can't afford your own ground. Anyway, absolute pleasure, Bruce. How are you feeling now? Are you still ramped up? Are you calm? Are we zen, or are you shitting a brick?
No, I'm all right. I just want the game done and dusted, so we know what's going on and then on to the next. It's a bit different this time, isn't it? It's not the first leg, second leg. It's it's a one-off game. It'll be a nervy affair tomorrow night, and I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't a great many goals in it. And just hope we come out on the right side of it. But what will be will be. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Who was it that said that he expected 3-0 nils and them all to go to penalties? That sounded
that was chalky. That was chalky joking, I think.
That was absolutely terrible. That idea is terrifying. Mike, anything else to add before we slot off? I think I've already asked you, but
I mean, 3-0 nils going to penalties. I'm a fat man. My heart will not stand that.
No, your Apple Watch is going mad, saying your heart rate is over 150. Colin, anything you want to add? Anything else you want to say before we go? I want to thank you firstly for your time as well.
No, thanks for having me. And like I say, I think this is typical of what football should be about, and particularly in our division, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Just a load of blokes getting together and having a chat about your team's chances, and ultimately, going again, however it ends. You know what I mean? We go back round and round this cycle, but no,
a load of pessimistic bastards expecting to lose 3-0.
That's what football's all about, isn't it? That's what football's all about. Forget what's gone on in the Premier League today. This is football right here. But yeah, like I say, I just hope it's an enjoyable game, and like I say, we're going to go away with memories regardless. So yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Everyone enjoy it. If you're in the home end, sit down, shut up, put your black and white scarf on. Don't invade the pitch. It's a big old pitch that you'll get a stitch before you get to the halfway line. And thank you everybody for joining us. We will do something straight after the game as well. So it'll either be misery or delight, and then more anxiety, I guess. With that, we'll go. Before we go, Simon Hodgson said thanks for the Mariner Hodo takeover. Wonderful lads. It's on now. We'll put it out on Wednesday. So we'll maybe feel a little bit dated if we've gone out, but it's well worth having a look at and going to some real youngsters who go to games away and home all the time, and are probably where you get most of your match highlights before BT can get off their fat asses and put them out instead. So well worth having a look at and going through. I said we'll be live straight after the game, so feel free to drop in when you're on the way home. And with that, as I'm stalling trying to find the way out, we will see you all very shortly. See you.
Scunthorpe United have lost 4-0 at home to Exeter City this afternoon.
Love it.